friends, welcome to a new episode of the Jena United podcast. And you might be wondering, why is this guy talking in English since we had only German episodes so far? Well, today, as you know, Jena is also a big hub of science here. And today we have an expert here to talk about one thing that everybody thinks and talks about the whole time recently, and it's longevity. And for that topic, we have a specialist here, a scientist, and your name is Maria Ermolaeva.
Right.
Is it pronounced right?
No.
It wasn't. Can you please tell me?
But I would suggest that you just keep it this way.
Okay, but can you?
Ermolaeva.
Ermolaeva.
So the first one is an O. The first. And
Okay.
you say Ermolaeva.
Ermolaeva. I don't know why I did.
I think it's because it's difficult.
Probably, yeah. I just know, with different languages, sometimes it's a little bit hard, also the pronunciation. But I guess it's the same for you when it comes to German.
Ooh.
It's pretty hard
Absolutely.
to explain since it's also not a pretty logical language. And so, yeah, can you please introduce yourself to our audience, who you are, what you do?
Okay. So I'm Maria. So I'm a tenured group leader at the Leibniz-Institut on Aging at Beutenberg campus here in Jena. And so since 10 years or 11 years now, I'm here in Jena investigating the mechanisms of aging and how we can live healthy for as long as possible.
How come that you chose Jena for your topic?
So it's not like Jena was really on my radar. But at some point when it was time for me to search for an independent position, I was looking actually not only in Germany, but in different European countries for a fitting place to do my specific kind of research. And Jena happens to have actually the oldest institute investigating aging in Germany.
Oh, really?
And one of the oldest in Europe. And it was certainly at that stage a fitting place to look at. And I got a nice offer, and therefore I came here. So that's basically the story. So I had several options in Germany and outside of Germany, and this place was just the best.
Yeah. I'm also not originally from Jena. I came here like 13 years ago, and for me it's like the best mixture of village and big city. So we have all the perks of a big city with the feeling of a little village. How do you feel about living here?
Yeah, I like it a lot. You know, the place where I grew up is even smaller than Jena. It's a small town in Moscow region. And then, of course, growing up, I felt really bored there because there wasn't much to do. And I was super excited to move to Moscow for my studies. And Moscow is a huge city. It has 15 million people now. I think it's like one of the biggest cities in Europe overall. And that was exciting for a time, but then one gets tired also of this continuous, mess, a lot of people and so on and so forth. Then I went to Rome to start my doctoral degree, and there it's also a big city, but it's less than Moscow. It's like 1 million people. Then there was Cologne, again with 1 million people. And here I feel like maybe, my life now made a circle, starting from a smaller place, going through some big cities and now coming back to a place that, feels like a good mix between a city and a village. And I enjoy it very much.
Yeah, I feel that. I feel that a lot. So the next step will be an even littler village, probably.
Maybe when I'm 80 years old, I don't know.
When you're done studying all the
when
stuff.
I'm done with everything.
How come that you are so interested in also this longevity topic? Because as I said, I'm not an expert. I'm just an interested person, but I also heard a lot of podcasts because I'm also interested in sports and supplementation. I heard a lot of podcasts with Dr. David Sinclair, who is also, I think, one of the longevity researchers. And so for that reason, I was also wondering what you think about all of this topic, and this is also why I'm really looking forward for this talk here. So how come that you are interested in this longevity topic?
So I think in principle I'm interested in aging, of course, and longevity, that's for sure. But I'm mostly interested in health and how we can stay healthy as much as possible. And that has been my interest since the beginning of my career. First, I was more focused on the immune system and how our body fights diseases. But then maybe it's even in a way a coincidence, So I started my PhD in Rome. And then my boss got an offer from Cologne to become professor there. And we moved to Germany. This is how Germany, ended up being on my radar. And when my PhD was done and I had to decide what to do next, I mean, the natural development, because, scientific careers, they are usually very cliche how they develop. So normally I would have to continue in the field of immunology and go maybe to the US, to some big lab and so on and so forth. But then Cologne decided to invest into aging. Why they did it, I don't know, but they built a huge center of aging research right at the time when it was, for me, the time to decide what I do next. And I was like, okay, I mean, aging is interesting, and aging in principle is health, but on a time scale, Not now, but for the many years to go, right? And so I investigated, so there were new people coming with new interesting research questions, and I looked into what they were doing and, found someone interesting to work with, and this is how it went, I guess.
Do you remember what the first, in German you would say, aha experience was when you dive into this topic? Because maybe to give it a little bit more context, yes. So when we think about aging, it's like something that everyone does, that everything does, and that it's just a regular way of life. And it's probably that your life has to a certain time when it will end, and there's nothing you can do about it. But when
It's religion.
That's kind of, right? So, the first maybe aha experience, probably the possibilities that there were. So maybe also the status of the research so far, what has been found out so far.
Actually now aging is a big thing since some years, right? Everyone talks about it. But when I started working on it, let me think about it. It was almost 20 years ago, actually. I think it was 2009. And it was a very niche topic that very few people cared about. And I just felt, this is something we know very little about. And like I said, it's health on a scale. How can we push health for as far as possible into the late life? There wasn't really like a boom moment that told me, like, no, that's the thing. I can't remember that. I guess it was really this thinking that, it's a topic that sounds interesting. We know little about it. Why not investigating it? Now, of course, being inside the topic, I have a lot more thoughts for why it's important, what specifically is important. And then there is this aspect that I think you touched upon already, the science of aging, and then people trying to improve themselves with all sorts of things. It became very complex. But in the beginning, for me, it was like a purely scientific challenge. I guess.
Okay.
That was very niche at the time.
Yeah.
I mean, it's hard to believe now, right? Because it's really like a big, big thing now. But in the past, it used to be a very niche scientific topic to research.
Do you think it will be possible that humans will become immortal one day?
No. I think there is a limit to what human body can do. And of course, I said very sharply no. I have to say that this is, of course, my personal opinion, right? I think there is a limit to how far biological system can go, even with all the different tricks that we can come up with to keep it going for longer time. And that's maybe for a human body something in the range of like 120 years max, which is basically why I'm saying this number, because we have certain people that live longer than the average, right? And it seems like the limit is around that age. Even for those, humans that are called centenarians, that make it over 100 years, or super centenarians that make it over 110, they have something in their genetics that allows them to make it that long. But still they die at max of 120 years.
Okay. So it's a genetic thing, and maybe not probably a coincidence, but not only the lifestyle thing, but also a genetic thing.
Yeah, I think it's 50% genetics, 50% environment, like for any feature of a biological system. Yeah.
Okay, because I read a lot that probably people in Asia, for example, because of their lifestyle, use or tend to live more longer than probably us Europeans, maybe even longer than the Americans, which is when you compare the lifestyle, not very difficult. Yeah.
Yeah.
Shout out to all the Americans there. And what do you think is the most important factor right now? Because like I said, I'm also interested in sports, also in supplementation, and I try to push my health as far as possible. What do you think is the biggest factor in health that needs to be recognized?
Diet, I mean, okay, lifestyle, diet is of course is part of lifestyle. So sleep, exercise and diet. These are the three most important factors that basically come from the environment to complement the genetic background that each person has. And of course, we have a lot of options for genetic engineering now that didn't exist in the past, like CRISPR-Cas and so on. Of course, there is a lot of regulation around this, and we cannot genetically modify humans now and probably not ever. I don't know. But I mean, there are, in principle, ways to change genetics somehow. But still, the environment is important, and these are the three factors. And even if we have a person, and this is now my personal opinion here, with the most favorable genetics, with the best possible lifestyle, there will still be a limit. Because the biological system has limits. It will not run forever. And because this discussion, immortality is, of course, a very fashionable topic these days. When people ask me, how can I live forever? The only way I see is to digitalize the brain or the personality of someone and just put it in a cloud.
Like some Ghost in the Shell style.
It sounds like crazy stuff, right? Yeah. But look how the world is going. I mean, I think maybe in 10 years it becomes reality. I don't know. Definitely. I wouldn't be surprised.
Even also you mentioned this CRISPR-Cas technique, and I have a client who's also a virologist, and he told me that it's not as fashionable as it used to be because you figured out that because it's like epigenetic scissor, right, where you can just cut certain strains of the DNA and just put it back together. Mm-hmm. And he said that they figured that it's way more complex than just this.
Yeah, it has, perhaps what this person was talking about is off-target effects. Mm. So the way this is done to target a specific gene, let's say, that the machine is guided by an RNA guide to a specific location. But it happens to also do changes in random parts of DNA that we cannot control, and we don't even see where it happens. Mm-hmm. So it's random. And this is a safety risk, because what if a mutation is being introduced that can cause cancer or something like this? So I think this is that. So basically, and this goes actually even, there are some ideas for how cells can be rejuvenated. And we can talk about it in detail if you want later.
Of course.
But the thing is that all of these techniques, they have certain side effects that have two big safety risks for being implemented in people. Like when we do studies in mice, we have 20 mice. In 10, it worked fine. Other 10 died. I mean, we don't look at that, right? Yeah. We just focus on the 10 that gave us what we want. But that is an unacceptable risk when applying certain methods to a human situation, right?
I also think that it's really, really fascinating that we can tell like certain effects from animals, and even like the simplest animals. I looked up that you are researching with worms, right?
Yeah, this is one of our models, yes.
Crazy. So because for me, as somebody who doesn't know anything, maybe a little bit, but not as the way as you do. So how is the epigenome compared of a worm like comparable to a human? Because only if you look at the form, it's way less complex for my eyes than probably a human body is.
Well, it's much less complex. So this specific worm that I work with is called C. elegans, and it only has 1,000 cells. Okay. This is I don't know how many cells a human has, but for sure many, many more cells. And of course, also the complexity in terms of what kind of organs it has is not the same as human. But interestingly, the number of genes, because we are talking about genetic comparison, right, is comparable between worm and human. And also around 80% of the genes are similar between worm and human. So very different organisms, but a lot of comparability in terms of genes and biological processes that are there and that regulate also aging. And this is why it makes sense to use the worm. And another thing is that because, when we find something in the worm, there is still high likelihood that in the human it will be similar. Worms live only 21 days, right? And this is a big advantage because if we want to test any genetic interventions that can modulate lifespan or any drugs that can change lifespan, let's say I want to test 1,000 drugs. That's the best model because in 1 month I know what happens. And so these are basically the reasons why we study worms because although it's a much less complex organism, there is a lot in biology we call conservation between worms and humans, and we can very quickly get some answers in terms of especially drugs that can modulate aging, which is mainly the focus of my research. I look really for interventions that can change the aging process. And when we find something that works in the worm, of course, we don't go directly on Amazon and start selling it. Then we say, okay, cool. In parallel with the worm, we also have human cell culture models of aging. Of course, they are very reductionist, but we can test already very quickly if the same molecular mechanisms like we found in the worm are modulated by this drug in a human cell system. And when we see this gives us confidence that it's a good candidate. And with such a candidate, we then move either to mouse models or what is very special about our institute here, we have a fish model, which is called turquoise killifish, Notobranchius furzerai. It's a fish, so it's a vertebrate that comes from Africa, where it lives under very special conditions. And because of that, it's a vertebrate that lives less than a fruit fly, like just few weeks, okay?
Oh, crazy.
So, and again, we can, discover drugs in C. elegans, and we can test it in the fish quite quickly, seeing if we get comparable results. And then, we move kind of in the pipeline towards maybe testing something in a real human.
Okay.
This is so it's like it's a screening pipeline that starts in a simple worm and then it goes all the way to
like a pyramid. So
like a pyramid.
It gets more complex and complex, and so you hope that these effects, like you mentioned before, like the humans share like 80% of their genome with worms, for example, that this change also affects these 80% that we share, so that we see like the same results.
Yes. Of course, there are some processes that don't exist in the worm. Like worms, we have a complex immune system as humans. Worms don't have much of an immune system. So when I'm starting my research in the worm, I'm aware that I cannot study, this aspect of aging. So I can mostly study basic mechanisms such as metabolism, but that's okay because metabolism is anyway one of the most important things in aging. Or, organ integrity. Like we have a project on leaky gut, which is one of the features of aging and also connects basically age with a lot of different diseases from, arthritis to neurodegeneration. That we can also study in the worm in very simple ways and so on. So basically, when one works with a pipeline that starts in a simple model organisms, one has to choose the question, which can be answered in this model. And one has to be aware that maybe certain aspects are not going to work from the very beginning. Yeah.
Oh, this is so good. Like, I always look at this and be like, oh, this is so amazing. Such a rabbit hole to read a lot of stuff. And also what you may or may not find in also these models is so interesting. So for somebody who doesn't know, what happens in the body when we age? Because also, complex
we
question.
don't know. Also, as scientists still.
So,
completely.
Like David Sinclair said in a podcast that you can imagine this as a CD. that is copied a lot of times, and during the times it also gets played, it gets some scratches, and because of this, it doesn't reproduce pretty well. So he was mentioning aging kind of as a disease that affects every animal, every plant, everything. So, but this was his take. What do you think about this?
I mean, these are 2 points, right? So the CD thing, this theory of aging that he has a name, I can't think about it. Information theory of aging, it's called, I guess. That the information is there, but you can't read it because your CD is scratched.
Yeah.
He's very good. He's a very controversial figure, I have to tell you right away. Many scientists in aging research think that he's too much hype-oriented and so on. I don't want to judge about that.
No, I know what you mean.
So
it's like pop science.
Pop science, maybe, yes. And also maybe a little bit too quick to say that something works without and trying to sell it to people without, testing enough. That's the general opinion about him in some circles. But yeah, so this information theory of aging goes like this, that the information is still there, but we can't read it because it's scratched due to time. And this theory implies that when we can remove the scratches, we can go back to where we were. And this is the whole, idea behind this epigenetic reprogramming tools. The Yamanaka factors. So Yamanaka is this Japanese researcher who got Nobel Prize. I don't remember when. I should, but at least I'm not good at this kind of numbers.
It's all right.
But basically what he discovered is he discovered 4 factors that can be given to differentiated cells. So when we are at the embryonic stage, our cells are multipotent, which means that a cell can become anything. It can become hair, it can become eye, muscle, whatever. And then with time, cells they begin to specialize.
Like
and something which is brain can no longer become eye, right?
Yeah.
And so these 4 factors, so-called Yamanaka factors, when we give them to the specialized cells, they can go back in time into embryonic state. And that's completely true. Now, the question is whether this can be used as a tool in a living human to reverse aging. And this is basically David Sinclair's idea of how aging can be reversed. So giving these Yamanaka factors that erase epigenetic scars from the genome of old cells and bring them back to younger state. And so I was talking about this when I was, mentioning some safety risks. Because what we cannot control, like we don't want our brain cells to become embryonic cells, right? Because when they go into embryonic state, they cannot do the job of the brain, right? We want them to go back in time just as much as needed. And this is exactly what we can't control. So when these factors are given to the cell will go back randomly into some states, sometimes going back too much.
But this works. So like the science is able now to put the cells back into this status.
Into the embryonic state, yes. That's as a scientific, but one has to separate a scientific proof of concept from what can be used as a treatment, right?
Yeah, of course.
I mean, it's already a big deal that we can reverse the differentiated states of cells back into the embryonic state. But whether this is a way to reverse aging is a question. Because, and I mean, I can talk about it for hours. I will just make one point.
Hopefully.
Then stop.
No, you can
because, there are many parts of our body that we can replace. We can even maybe one day grow heart in addition, then put it into a person, to replace the broken heart of an old person. And this is actually also one direction where anti-aging field is going, the replacement idea that, in the future, maybe we can just collect cells from people, reprogram them to become kidneys or hearts or whatever. And then when my kidney is old, I just get it from a bank and so on. Actually, I think this is less of a science fiction than one may think, especially with the whole 3D printing technologies and so on and so forth. And I think with many, if not most organs in our body, this would work to replace them. The problem is the brain. because this is where our personality is, right? This is what makes us us. So what do we do with the brain? I mean, either we grow, how do we grow a brain? I mean, and who is you then? That brain that is an addition.
I mean, it would benefit a lot of people, if they get like a functioning brain.
Right. And then, so for brain, I think the only option we have is to somehow reprogram it to become younger, right? Mm. And then those epigenetic reprogramming tools, they remove epigenetic marks. So the way they work is by removing epigenetic marks. But the thing is that those epigenetic marks is how your memory works. This is how your neurons remember things from your past. Okay. Now, when this gets erased, we get a young person, but who is this person?
Yeah.
I mean, even if it works, even if we can control, the degree of reversal without making brain into embryonic state, who comes out?
So it's like the hardware is the same, but the software probably it's like putting Linux on a Windows PC, maybe.
No,
so
it's like you
different.
erased everything from your computer and you can not find your old files anymore.
Yeah. Oh, this is also pretty interesting. This is kind of like a theological question, because then it's like you are technically immortal then, but maybe not immortal. But
who is that person?
Yeah, it's a different person. So it's like you died and it's another one and you still not made it like through the forever. So
yeah, exactly.
Wild.
I mean, this is why aging it became so fascinating, because it's not anymore just biology, it's ethics, because there are a lot of ethics aspects about different things and what can be done, what cannot be done, and so on. It's also very philosophical,
Yeah.
There are many theories and many discussions in that direction, and it's interesting.
And it's also wild that when we also talk about like getting 100 years old, getting 120 years old, I would rather be in my 20s till I'm maybe 80, like in a biological state, than because like I know very few 100 years olds and even fewer who are like in a physical shape, which would be something that I would desire for the future. Because just being alive, I mean, if you can't move, if everything is broken down, what life is it then? So do you think it's getting way easier to age older while being healthy?
No. I mean, I think what you brought up now is a very important point. The medicine that we have right now is already very good in keeping people alive for as long as possible. But it cannot keep them healthy.
So Leute, kleine Werbeunterbrechung, aber ich verspreche euch eine, die sich auf jeden Fall für euch lohnt. Kennt ihr den Kampfkunsttempel in Jena? Wenn ihr den nämlich nicht kennt, solltet ihr das auf jeden Fall tun. Dahinter steckt nämlich der liebe Dr. Robin Tutschke, den hatten wir hier auch schon im Podcast. Und Robin macht seit über 30 Jahren Ding Chun Kung Fu. Und das macht er so erfolgreich, dass er da bei der Weltmeisterschaft in Foshan, ich hoffe, ich habe es richtig ausgesprochen, Gold, Silber, Bronze, alles an Medaillen abgeräumt hat. Und das ist auch nicht irgendeine Stadt, sondern da kommt Wing Chun her. Das ist sozusagen das absolute Mekka. Also schon mal ein Pluspunkt. Dann ist es noch so, dass der liebe Robin beim Neffen von Yip Man gelernt hat. Wer das nicht kennt, wer nicht weiß, wer Yip Man ist der Trainer von Bruce Lee gewesen. Der dürfte euch auf jeden Fall ein Begriff sein. Und ihr lernt also eine Kampfkunst im traditionellen Stil in der 3. Generation. Und wenn das nicht cool ist, Leute, dann weiß ich auch nicht. Das findet man sonst nämlich nicht so oft. Eine Sache ist auch ganz wichtig. Man lernt im Kampfkunsttempel, obwohl der Name so klingt, nicht nur kämpfen, sondern eine Sache ist Robin ganz, ganz wichtig. Und zwar ist das hier oben. Die Formung sozusagen nicht nur vom Körper, sondern auch vom Geist. Robin bringt euch nämlich auch bei, wie ihr mit eurem Geist so ein bisschen in Einklang kommt, wie ihr Stress regulieren könnt. Es geht ganz viel, und das hat mich auch ehrlich gesagt überrascht, aber bei ihm geht es ganz viel um Ruhe und Sachen, die man lernen kann. Gerade in hektischen Zeiten wie heute, denke ich, ist das eine ganz coole Sache und ein richtig cooler Skill, den man irgendwie lernen kann und vielleicht auch lernen sollte. Und wenn ihr jetzt sagt, ja, ich bin vielleicht zu alt oder ich habe keine Zeit, ich habe aber Kids, für die das interessant ist, dann kann ich euch auf jeden Fall noch ein weiteres Angebot aus dem Kampfkunsttempel ans Herz legen, und zwar die Drachenkinder. Die Drachenkinder, auch Jenas starke Zukunft genannt, ist eine Gruppe innerhalb vom Kampfkunsttempel, wo ihr eure Kids ab 3 Jahren hinschicken könnt. Willkommen ist erstmal jeder, ihr braucht keine sonstigen Voraussetzungen, außer dass man 3 Jahre alt sein muss. Und dort lernen die Kinder nämlich nicht nur, sich körperlich mal so richtig auszupowern, sondern eben auch, und das zieht sich durch, wir haben jetzt hier wieder so einen Full-Circle-Moment, auch eben das hier oben zu benutzen. Das bedeutet, die Kids lernen Aufrichtigkeit, die lernen Disziplin und die lernen Durchhaltevermögen. Alles Sachen, die jetzt nicht direkt in der Schule beigebracht werden, die ihr euch aber auf jeden Fall richtig cool dort anlernen könnt. Also egal, ob du 3 oder 63 bist, der Kampfkunsttempel hat für dich definitiv das beste Angebot. Checkt jetzt auf jeden Fall die Webseite ab, kampfkunsttempel.de. Alle weiteren Infos findest du bei uns in den Shownotes und lass uns gerne mal wissen, wenn du da warst, wie du es fandest, weil ich finde das Angebot nämlich richtig stark und jetzt viel Spaß weiter mit der Folge. Leute, übrigens ganz, ganz wichtig, wenn ihr uns noch unterstützen wollt und dieses Projekt hier unterstützen wollt und sagt, wir haben gar keinen Bock, Kohle auszugeben, kein Problem. Ihr könnt auch einfach auf Folgen drücken, uns abonnieren, uns eine Bewertung geben und vielleicht sogar euren Freunden davon erzählen. Das wird uns wirklich extrem weiterhelfen. Deswegen macht das jetzt gerne. Einmal ganz kurz auf Folgen drücken, drückt die Glocke, drückt das Herz, wo auch immer, auf welcher Plattform ihr das gerade seht. Einmal eben kurz und dann helft ihr uns. Dankeschön.
So aging, as I explained earlier, was for me in the beginning an abstract biological question, just a pure scientific challenge. But then I followed my grandmother becoming frail. I mean, she lived till 92, which is maybe over average. But at some point, and she was very healthy without a lot of problems with her health. But still, even when someone is healthy and active, at some point there is a very, very sharp decline in capacity that goes in two different directions. So sometimes people are physically fine, but their cognitive capacity declines. Mm-hmm. And other people, like my grandma, for example, her cognitive health was perfect, but her body declined to an extent that she couldn't do things that she wanted to do, like basic things like going outside on her own, And you don't know what is worse. Actually, it's not nice either way, right? Mm-hmm. And I could see, and she was always a very strong person, very independent person. She wanted to contribute to the family. She wanted to contribute to the community, and how hard it was on her to not be able to do this anymore. And at this point of time, I mean, aging stops being, when you experience something like this with a family member, it stops being an abstract issue, and you really want this to not happen to people, right? And that's, I think, this is for me, like there is this group of people, the so-called immortalists, that want to create revolutionary solutions for us to live forever. There is another group where I belong, so the health span people. For me, the main driving idea is to make sure that nobody is miserable at the end of life. Whether this is physical capacity or mental capacity, either way, yeah.
If you ask me, so I would rather go this way than the other one, because like I said, what is when my body is fit but my cognitive possibilities aren't, I'm not the one who thinks about it actively, so I'm just living the best day probably because I don't know.
Right.
So, but the other way around, I see it probably in my grandmother, she's very, very cognitive fit, but her body starts to break down, and I also see what it does with your mental health. Because if you want to do stuff that you aren't able to do, I mean, like I'm 36 years old, so where I see it probably in going out and drinking and having a party, I'm not able to do it as good as I was able to do it like in my 20s, probably. But I think I'd rather be healthy as long as possible than just maybe want to live forever. And there's also this guy, I forgot his name, who he's this billionaire from the US who...
Brian Johnson, I guess.
Yeah, Brian Johnson. Yeah, it was his name. So unfortunately, there was the message spreading I think it was last week or the week before, that he got a disease that is not curable, that he's... No matter how hard he tried, this is something that he can't escape. So,
yeah, I know. Actually, I never checked because, like you said, it's recent. I did not check which exactly was the disease.
The disease was that his stomach ate itself. So the immune system attacked the...
Autoimmune disease. Okay.
Yeah, it is an autoimmune disease and it's not curable from this point. So now he has a new challenge, like beat this and tell the people, yeah, it's possible to beat it. And for me, it's pretty interesting because I don't have the financial resources and maybe not the motivation to do it like this, but it's cool to see it, what is possible. Because like, if you ask me, I think we haven't uncovered even 1% of life and whatever all this is here and what's possible. So it's always crazy to live in these times to see what's possible and what's not, and what we thought maybe is not possible and actually is. And I also read a very interesting thing about your work, because you claim that a little bit of mild stress is actually good for you. And also, to get the connection back to what I know, I don't want to reference David Sinclair as the source of truth, but this is the only scientist like that where I read or I listened to multiple podcasts, and because I just found it so interesting. So this is one of my only bases of knowledge. So please don't judge me for this. But
no, not at all.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, I have to say, some people may think some of the things he says and does are controversial. But what has to be given to him is that he's probably one of the best science communicators in the field. And I think maybe the first one who really started communicating to the public. And that needs to be acknowledged.
I bought NMN afterwards,
Right.
And I figured it's not working. So
I mean, it's not working, but it's also not dangerous. So you're fine.
So it's just expensive. So at least somebody profited off of this. But I forgot the question. I wanted to know, like, the mild stress thing. Can you please explain what you mean with this?
Yeah, actually, it's something that probably we all do on few times a week, like exercise is a mild stress. It's a form of mild stress. So when one is exercising, for example, going for a long run, what happens in the cells is that the level of oxygen is reduced, and this pushes metabolism to be remodeled towards maybe a healthier outcome in the future. So this is what I'm talking about. So diet is like eating less food is also a form of stress, because when food is only available, let's say like intermittent fasting, some people think is the best way of doing it. When food is only available for a short window during the day, for the rest of the day, the body has to learn how to remodel itself towards using the resources in the most efficient way, which is in the long term better for the body, because the body this is called energy metabolism. It includes mitochondria that we study a lot, and also other pathways in the cell. So the energy metabolism becomes more efficient and more consistent with healthy aging. So by making our cells a little bit uncomfortable in specific ways, we can push them to get better. This is in some things.
Yeah,
yes.
Okay. So like this, I heard about this intermittent fasting being beneficial for you. So, and this is why you like give the body a certain challenge. So one could say it's probably like the civilization that we built is probably not beneficial for our health. So having everything all at once available, like being fed the whole time, which is, I mean, we are lucky because we are in the 1% of people who can afford to being fed the whole time, but probably it's something different in other parts of the world. But this is actually something that is definitely beneficial for you if you have certain episodes or like challenges to the body, like fasting, for example.
Yes, I have to say, because here we come to a moment when I said something that needs to be a little bit corrected.
Okay.
So I said intermittent fasting is probably the best way, which is probably true for some people and not others. So with this mild stress interventions, such as diet and exercise, what is good for a specific person really depends on their genetic makeup. Like for some people, in terms of exercise, it would be better to do more strength training. For others, it would be better to build more muscle because they have less muscle, and muscle mass is very important for metabolism and so on. For others, it would be better to go for long runs. It's the same with diet. For some people, intermittent fasting would be the best way. For others, they should just change the composition of the diet and so on and so forth. But like I said, you said something before that we are learning more and more about the way things work and the way aging happens and the way we can maybe work on being healthy for a longer time. What is crazy is that researching in detail and with methods that allow us now to look into the cell at very, very nanometer level what is happening on a specific location in a cell, the methods become more complex. But what we find over and over, that simple advices that your grandma could have given you already, like exercise, eat well, and sleep, are the things. I mean, sleep is not a stress.
Yeah.
Sleep actually is a time, and we also work on that in the lab. Sleep is the time when damage is repaired, right? But exercise is a stress, and dieting is a stress. Mm-hmm. And so far in humans, these are the best and most reliable ways of living longer. And we do like big research projects, and then we go back to mechanisms that can be activated by exercise, you know?
Yes.
So we learn in a very, very sophisticated way that grandma's advice was actually the good one.
Yeah.
That's what keeps happening.
This is really cool. Also that you figure that probably also ancient humans, they kind of figured it out without exactly knowing the mechanisms about it. So what we do now, as I understand it, is like that we just investigate these certain mechanisms and we can explain it a lot better, but it stays the same. So it's not as, probably you should do maybe, I don't know, maybe drink 100 liters of water a day. So
that's another thing. One
really?
needs to drink water. Yeah. Hydration is very important too.
Also for aging?
For health. And I mean, essentially, aging well is having as little damage as possible over the course of life. I mean, that's what it boils down to. And healthy habits allow us to, achieve this, not have so much damage accumulating.
But you mentioned also that it depends on your personal epigenome, what is actually suitable for you, which leads me to a point where I say this is probably a business model, just to see the epigenome of a certain person to know, okay, you need to work out more cardio stuff, you need to build more muscle mass. Is there anything like, is like 8 hours of sleep still like the benchmark, or also it depends on the body? So there's people.
Yeah, it depends on the body, but I think 8 hours is probably for most people the benchmark. And the business model that you pointed out is actually being already exercised.
Yeah, of course.
So basically, that's the business model of longevity clinics. What they and there are some in Germany, there are some everywhere, and what they do, they offer a very, very precise screening of different health parameters, including DNA, sequencing, and so on, to basically exactly provide to a person a list of how they should behave to live better and longer. Mm-hmm. How to exercise, what kind of supplements they should take, and so on and so forth. So that's exactly, I guess, the state of affairs at the moment.
What do you think overall about supplementation in general? For the regular person, maybe not, of course, for somebody who's sick. Do you do supplements?
Yeah, I do supplements. I tend to trust mostly what comes out of our own work, to be honest. So, I take vitamins because I think, it's very difficult for a regular person in the modern world to have a diet that has everything we need. So vitamins for sure. And then, so I'm taking choline. So this comes out of our recent paper that we just published on mitochondrial aging. So mitochondria is a powerhouse of the cells. So it's basically the key organelle that converts carbohydrates and fats from our food into energy, right? And the efficiency of mitochondria basically defines our metabolic health. Mm-hmm. Whether we're, obese or, I don't know, fit and so on and so forth, depends very much on mitochondrial health.
So every cell has a mitochondria,
multiple
which is like...
mitochondria,
okay, multiple.
Multiple mitochondria with a little bit of its own genome. So basically, without mitochondria, we have no life because the energy that the cells are using for being alive is produced by mitochondria. And the problem is that by producing energy, there is oxygen involved. So basically, the oxygen we breathe is used by mitochondria to produce energy. But oxygen is also a highly reactive chemical, so to say, that induces damage. So by doing their job, mitochondria get damaged over time, And at some point, their efficiency declines. And this is a very important reason for why cells are aging. So one, because they cannot produce any more energy to the same level. And which is why improving mitochondrial health during aging is one big direction of aging research. And what we discovered, and most people actually focused on mitochondrial genome, thinking that maybe damage there accumulates, there are mutations, and this is what drives mitochondrial aging. What we found is actually it's not so much the genome, but the composition of mitochondrial membrane. So it's an organelle that has its own membrane that is made of fats, of specific fats. And there is also one thing to mention about mitochondria is that to be efficient, they have to be very dynamic. There is like a process of fusion when different individual mitochondria fuse into a bigger factory of energy production. And of course, a bigger factory is more efficient than small little units. But the ability to form factories is based on the presence of a specific lipid in the mitochondrial membrane. And this lipid, which is called phosphatidylcholine, it declines with age because the production mechanism becomes broken. So mitochondria can no longer form these big efficient factories, and this is one part of why old cells cannot produce energy. But the good thing is that we can take it with food. So, phosphatidylcholine can be taken as a supplement itself, but it's not very stable. So I wouldn't do that because you may take it, but it doesn't end up in the right place. Or choline can be a way to improve the levels of phosphatidylcholine in the cells. And this is what I'm taking. So this was the whole, basically, explanation for why I'm taking this particular supplement, which is based basically on this work that we recently published.
I had some in my stack, I guess, and is acetylcholine the same? No, it isn't, right? Because it's in X-alpha GPC?
I don't know. I don't know if it can be converted in the same way. So what I'm taking is choline, which is, I think, made from some fat-containing plants or something. So it's not specifically modified, maybe not that fancy because of this. So this is one, and the other one is a natural compound that improves intestinal health. I cannot talk about it yet because we're still working, specific names and so on, because we are still working on the intellectual property angle there. But so we have, we did something very interesting actually. So this is unpublished, but to some extent I can talk about it. We looked into the microbiome of human centenarians. So we talked in the very beginning about people that live longer than others, right? And it's very true what you said, that there are some specific areas in the world, like China, Japan, or Italy, where more people are living longer than, let's say, Germany or Russia, or I don't know. And it's a combination, I guess, of genetic but also environmental factors, right? And what is also true for these long-lived people is that their intestinal health is better compared to the general population, and they have less problem with leaky gut syndrome, which is basically like gut has to be, I don't know the word, but I shouldn't leak. Let's say. Because when, food components and bacterial parts are leaking from the gut into the bloodstream, that's not good, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's quite clear.
Sepsis is quite a thing.
It's not even sepsis. It's very minor inflammation that just goes on forever, and it affects all tissues, including the brain. I mean, sepsis is a very severe form of leaky gut. But this very minor problem, actually, that people may not even realize because they just feel a little bit bad, but not like so super bad. This affects many people. So I think it's like 1 in 10 people
really
is affected by this, by some form of leaky gut. And this goes worse with age. So with age, it will be like most people have leaky gut problem. And so this minor inflammation that, impairs integrity of multiple tissues in the body, there will be many people who would think this is the biggest problem in aging. Like, depending on who you talk to.
Of course, it's science, right?
Yeah. But what we realized is that centenarians have less of this problem, and they also have very specific microbiome. So there are microbes in our intestine that help us digest the food, and also help us being protected from pathogens and so on. And there were some signatures that, existed in centenarians, but not in, let's say, general population. And so we investigated those signatures to try to identify any strains of bacteria that we can culture outside the gut and then maybe use as probiotic treatments for improving intestinal integrity in the general population. And we could find one bacterium that in C. elegans, okay, improve intestinal integrity during aging by 160%, which was like really super a lot of difference. And then we discovered through some experiments that it's actually not the bacterium really, but something it produces that does the job. And this this allows us with some sophisticated chemistry and a long time of investigation to actually identify a specific one molecule that can do that.
Crazy.
And so this is the kind of natural compound that also I'm taking, also because I have family history of intestinal dysfunctions, and like I said, genetics is something we have to keep in mind. So yeah, this is my personal stack of supplements, which is not many. Yeah, but so the general answer from my side is that I think supplements are good, but one has to be selective, I guess.
Yeah, that's very true. Yeah, so my stack is a little bit longer. I also take magnesium, I also take creatine, I also take omega-3. Even not that fancy kind of stuff. The citicoline was something I figured, I just asked ChatGPT, like what is beneficial? My daily routine, I run a lot of businesses, I have a lot of stress. And therefore also in the evening I take NAC and glycine, like the
antioxidants.
Yeah, antioxidants, which is also something that I figured before that this NAC and the glycine also works pretty good together when it comes to also aging. I read it. Like I said, I just try things out. I'm as you might recognize, I'm very easily to interest in stuff, So, and I find a lot of things pretty cool, and I just try this out. And what do you think, like for you personally, like what is the benchmark age that you would like to reach?
The benchmark age, I think 85, 90 would be fine.
Yeah.
When my grandma turned 90, I talked to her and I asked her maybe a silly question. How does it feel? Like getting to this age. Was it difficult? Is it complicated? And she answered something. She said, even counting to 90 is already complicated.
Yeah, it is.
So you figure out. I guess it can. I can't. I guess I'm maybe like in midlife right now, right? So I haven't reached that kind of perspective yet. But maybe at some point you're there and you're like, I have seen it all already. It's also fine now,
This is what my dad told me. It's like last year he turned 79, and this year sadly he passed away. But I also asked him, are you afraid of the height, right? So when you look down, like 79, and I know that he was afraid to go someday, to pass away. And he said something to me which was also beneficial to process his passing, because he also told this to me, like, Sebastian, at a certain point you have seen it all and things just repeat themselves. So you just enjoy the time that you have without getting, too much stressed out by the environment, because you know how humans are, how society is. And for that reason, it gave me some kind of peace also to deal with this issue this year, because I know that you will get relaxed maybe when you get older, because you have so much experience that it's pretty hard to be surprised, maybe, to say it like this.
Yeah, it's actually because there is also a psychological aspect of aging, which is its own field of research, right? And there is this like U-shaped stress curve, Well, no, not stress curve, U-shaped curve of happiness, which says that we are happiest at the beginning and end of life, and we are least happy when we're midlife. Yeah. Maybe it's going in the same direction. And I think there is data suggesting that older people are less stressed and less unhappy than people, let's say, in their 40s or 50s.
Do you have an answer for yourself why it is like that? Because I also 35, 36, probably I'm in the middle age of a man who can reach maybe 70, maybe 80 years today. But I figure there's a lot also in my friends, they start to buy gravel bikes and expensive coffee machines and stuff, and maybe just going in a different direction in their life. Why do you think is it that you are maybe unhappy in that area? Not as a question as a scientist, but as a personal question maybe.
Yeah, of course I thought about it, right? Everyone does at some point. I think it's the time when people realize that a lot of time had passed, and probably they are, if they're lucky, in the middle of their life. For some, they're not so lucky, maybe even further, right? What have I achieved? I guess it's that kind of feeling, like people are starting to be afraid to not have achieved or have experienced something in life. Because it kind of is the first time maybe when people start feeling the countdown. Mm-hmm. I don't know, I can't tell now if I ever had that. For me, I find age to be good for me. In what way? I care less about what people think about me. Yeah. And that's very liberating.
Yeah, it is. It's so good.
I think that's the best part, actually.
I also tell my friends, you can be happy and lucky if I'm consider that wearing a pant in my 50s is okay, because I'm not caring to a certain point now that I'm very afraid of how less I will care in the next time, so that going out with pants is optional when you are 50 probably.
Yeah, exactly. We are here now in Europe, we're very lucky, right? Yeah. I was reading an article just a couple of days ago that finally in Japan, because Japan has very strict corporate culture, how people can be dressed when they go to work and so on. Finally, men can wear shorts on a hot day. Oh. And that's a big scandal, because then women are not happy, and I don't know. I guess here it's easier.
Yeah. Sometimes old people tell me that people nowadays are way easier offended than they used to be. And I've seen a documentation about people men having long hair in the 60s, where people just got crazy, how can you go out like this and stuff, where you just be yeah, it's just long hair, and it's not even your body. So it's so cool. How is it when you are a scientist? How is how do you spend your days? Because I figure that it's probably not a regular 9-to-5 job where you just go to work, because you're also interested in what you do. Maybe the same as being self-employed. So from everything that I learned from you so far, I would expect that you are also somebody who is you can find me in the lab late in the night, just figuring stuff out.
Working, yes. You can find me working at any time of day and night. In the lab, not always, because I myself no longer work on the bench. Mm-hmm. So I'm now more telling people what to do.
You're orchestrating.
Orchestrating, yeah. Conceptual leadership, this is called. If one has to come up with a fancy way. But to be honest, I think I never stop thinking about questions. Even when I'm just walking somewhere, and I like to walk because it's an activity that is very good for health and healthy aging. And also it's a good, this kind of repetitive movements are very good for allowing the brain to process questions. It's I wake up and I immediately remember something. So it's a job that never stops.
Yeah.
If that's what you meant, then that's it.
Yeah, that's what I meant.
Yes.
I just also listened today to a podcast where also it came to sports and about thinking. It was a psychiatrist, I think, and he was having this that we use the cell phones too much. I'm obviously also somebody who takes that a lot, but there they also said that this meditative kind of just going out for a walk is actually good to process this information. And now you're also telling me that it's even beneficial for your health, of course, because it's exercise, but also because it's like a certain form for me of meditation, because I don't need to think about what I'm doing, like one foot before the other, you know? It's just like I have free time while doing something. It's crazy.
Yes. It's exactly like that, I guess. It is.
And so many stuff that I want to ask and so many stuff to learn. How do you feel like when you said you discovered that the certain product of a bacteria is actually probably beneficial for you? Is there something like, is this eureka moment or not yet? How do you feel when you discover such a thing like that? Because for me, it sounds like pretty much revolutionary.
I think these eureka moments are overhyped, to be honest. I mean, it's like this eureka I don't know if they even exist in reality. I do realize that the way scientific discoveries are portrayed in, let's say, maybe movies or popular culture, it's like you're sitting and like Newton sitting under the tree and the apple falls on his head, and then he discovered the gravity law, right? Usually this is not how it goes. Usually we have a question in mind, and then we work for 10 years to answer this question. And then we found the answer. Of course, we are happy and super excited about it, but I don't know if it fits to the concept of the eureka moment.
So you don't feel that you are finished, so it's maybe just a milestone and something.
It's a milestone, of course. I mean, we have found this particular chemical, but we also immediately realized that in the natural form, maybe it does not have, so there is such thing as bioavailability. So I may eat a kilo of something, but if it has low bioavailability, I may get nothing into my system, right? And so we see immediately that the molecule which is originally there, which can be naturally obtained, has limited bioavailability. So we have immediately the next question: how can we modify it? You know, then we have done discoveries in C. elegans, human cell culture, and another culture that kind of mimics the lining of the intestine. Okay. But so we have to now test in our next models if it works in colitis models in mice, if it works in human patients with colitis. I have to say also that when we are, aiming for something that will improve health span, we usually keep this in mind. But for in-between testing, we try to find a disease condition that could benefit from the same biological improvement, and this will be our testing ground, right? Because aging itself, I mean, for many reasons, it's a long trial that just takes ages, right? And also from the regulatory perspective, it's not recognized as a disease, so we cannot do human tests for aging at the moment, you know. Mm-hmm. And so what I wanted to say is that when we find something, we are super happy, of course, because in this case, we have a molecule, it has a mechanism that makes sense. It seems to functionally really bring about huge improvements for the health. But then comes the next question, and the next question, and so on and so on.
So the story goes on and on and on.
Yes. So it just like my thinking, it never stops, I guess. One always goes for the next and the next and the next.
And when you find something like this, you publish a paper about this, which will get reviewed by other scientists. And so they just say if it's good or if it's not, and then you go on.
In a way, yes. Go on? What do you mean by go on?
Then it's considered true. This is what I wanted to say.
Yeah, I guess so. Although, a peer review, this is called the peer review process, when 3, 4, or 5 other researchers have to evaluate our work and then give an opinion about it, maybe ask for some additional tests that we have to do and so on. But it's a system that is based on a personal opinion of someone, right? Is it true because this guy agrees with me? I mean, I'm happy when I could pass the peer review and I have my paper. But just to be a little bit of a devil's advocate here, it does not mean it's true. It just means that 3 other people agreed with me that from the experiments I have done, I can make this kind of conclusion.
So the possibility is maybe a little higher, but it's not 100% then.
Yeah.
And when you say you asking questions and you just investigate the questions, how hard is it for you as a scientist to get funds for this? Because this is also like a technical question for me, because we are talking a lot of what you need, what you are actually doing, and everybody knows we live in a world where everything costs something. And you said that you're working at the Leibniz-Institut. So is it just that they let you do whatever you want, or how is the process there to get the funds you need for your research?
So to some extent, I'm funded by the Institute. So I have certain amount of money that I can use for whichever project I wish. But it's also true that, let's say, every 5 years, because I'm now tenured, so I have a permanent position there, right? Mm-hmm. It's different for people that have junior positions that are fixed to a certain time. But in any case, even if I can stay for the next 20 years in the Leibniz Institute, every 5 years there will come people that will check what I'm doing, right? Because there needs to be some accountability for the funds that I receive from taxpayers. And there they will judge how successful I was in those maybe crazy ideas that I had. Did I publish? Did something come out in terms of technology transfer? So technology transfer is when what we discover can be then continued as a drug or as an intervention, and going into the world basically to make real impact. Because many times there are papers, but they remain papers, right? So this is that. So there is like a certain amount of funding that I can count on, but that's little, I would say. So if I really want to do ambitious projects, I have to get additional money. At the moment, for example, I have a big grant from the European Union. I don't know if you know this ERC grants. So the European Research Council grants. So I have a consolidated grant from the ERC, which is like 2 million euros for 5 years. And this allows me to do more crazy stuff. But of course, in such an application, I also have to write exactly what I want to do, and I have to give reports what I have done with the money. So there is one issue that I'm facing right now, and I think it's typical for my kind of research and for the kind of stage where many projects are. So it's not too complicated to get academic funding. So basically the funding that funds basic research. So understanding how molecule A interacts with molecule B and what they do in the intestine together, these kind of things. I mean, one can get easily funding for that. And then there is a lot of funding from, let's say, industry or like business investors and so on for drug candidates that are already verified to a certain extent to improve intestinal integrity or sleep or whatever. I mean, we do different things. Where we have a black hole, or it's called, I think there is even a name for it, it's called the Valley of Death. So a project which passed the basic research, so I have a candidate, but I need to do tests to get proof of concept where it becomes interesting for investors. Okay. This is a nightmare. There's like almost nothing one can do. And it's crazy because I think because of this Valley of Death situation, which I think in the US, for example, is less drastic than here, because in the US there are a lot of private foundations that, you pitch to them and they like your project, they give you money. Here it's a little bit less of that, or even much less.
Crazy.
Many discoveries never make it into something real because of that. Because people just face an issue of not getting money to pass this transition from where it stops being basic science and until it becomes a validated drug candidate.
Do you think it's because of the sale process that you need? Because I think you need also to advertise very good for your project, because you're not the only researcher in the field. You're not the only one who wants to get the funding done. But for example, when I think about this, I might think, probably there's very, very good candidates where it's definitely worth to go through this valley of death to go with the funding from, like, let's say, companies, industry, whatever, which are not followed because they don't see the potential in it. And do you think it's because, and you said it's easier in the US, why is it here that it's like that? Because everybody would benefit from it. I mean, the industry itself is not as strong as it used to be, but we have a lot of BASF, for example, or Pfizer, some whatever pharmas that we have here. Why is it like that here in Germany?
So we start because you mentioned Pfizer, right?
Yeah.
So the big drug producing companies and so on. It's a business decision for them. They do not want to invest into you developing something. They would rather buy a developed product. And because the volume of science is big, there will be someone offering them a product which is already at a more advanced stage. I mean, how they got there, no one cares, right? So the business people, the pharmaceutical giants will not give you money for development because it doesn't make sense for them commercially. It's easier for them to buy something which is ready, right?
Okay.
And the academic fundings, they just don't fund. It's just not what they fund. They are there to fund basic research exactly because basic research is something basic and no one is going to invest into it, right? So one thing is not possible because you no longer fit the criteria that it has. And the second thing is difficult because it makes no sense for the big companies to fund you. And you asked about the difference between Europe and US. The explanation is easy. There is more money in the US. There are more people for who giving you $1 million doesn't mean anything because it's little money for them, right? So they can afford wasting money on projects that may not get anywhere. It's not so much the case in Europe, I think, just because of the volume of money that, is circulating in the system.
Yeah, it's the same probably with startups and stuff because like Germany is a little bit more conservative when it comes to this because here it's like usually the ratio is 9 out of 10 startups die within the first 5 years. And I think it's maybe the same with like the research stuff. But here we don't accept this fact. We are just concentrating on the one, you need to, this is the one that will get there and otherwise it doesn't make sense. So it's probably possible that once you have done doing the intellectual property work with the chemical you just found, that you will, once this is clear, that you maybe sell the project or like pitch to some other, maybe in other countries, because this sounds a little bit, it sounds very important, not something that you can just wipe away and be like, okay, this is nice, thank you for your work, and let's go on with something different.
Yeah, of course we are pushing for it. I mean, there are instruments in let's say, I mean, I know a little bit more about Germany than about other countries in Europe for obvious reasons. I mean, so there is this BMVTR, which is the Bundesministry of Forschung, Space Travel and T. I don't remember what it is. But anyway, so it's a dedicated ministry for innovation, okay? And they have funding for projects like that. And so this project that we call SEAL, it's an acronym. I don't remember. I came up with it myself, but I don't remember it anymore.
Sounds very cool, by the way.
Yeah, thank you. And so it kind of like, so it's called Go Bio Initiative from this BMVTR, and it funds translational projects coming out of the lab. And we were in the first stage, but then didn't make it to the next stage. And it goes in stages, and in each stage one gets more money. Okay? The question is that the problem is that the amount of money is not much, so there is a lot of selectivity, and it's also not entirely clear what defines the outcome, right? It can also be that you didn't sell it good enough. Because they always tell you we are looking for the next blockbuster. Yeah. And then you're like, how is it not a blockbuster when you can improve gut integrity by 160%? But maybe, other projects made a bigger case of whatever they were doing, right? So there is this line of funding. There is also a new one from the European Union that is called EIC and is focusing on aging this year. And I already was contacted by some companies to explore collaborations, probably to apply for this. There is also Sprint, which is a federal agency for disruptive innovation.
Cool.
So there is like, this BMFTR that kind of funds normal innovation, and there is also a special one with disruptive innovation.
Mm-hmm.
So we are trying to work with all of them, and I think something will work out eventually, right? I guess one just shouldn't give up. But because you asked about this funding situation, I was saying that for this kind of projects that are left the basic science but didn't arrive yet into a product, these are the hardest ones to get funding for, at the moment.
And even you mentioned like 2 million euros, it sounds much, but everybody who has been a businessman or has some experience knows that it's like very little amount of money, because you need personnel, you need equipment. I think the equipment is very, very expensive, and also all the stuff around. I mean, like 2 million, of course, it's not nothing. It's a lot of money, but it's for, I think, scientific research, it's just a scratch. I know that funding, like I said, I'm very into the startup businesses and stuff. And then it also changed. It used to be like a lot of money, 2 million, like 500,000. And now it's like, 100 million, 500 million, whatever. So it's just gotten so crazy that, but I mean, like if you make it through, even with this, you know that you have something on your mind that is actually, you can be very, very proud of. And I think if you make this, you can also go further with this, because it's so hard to go there. And also, is there any question that you would like to answer during your career? Something different?
Question.
Then
I mean, there is another project, somehow maybe it's like my self-centeredness. I don't know how to say it. The questions that I want to answer, they are somehow related to myself. Mm-hmm. Like, for example, we talked about sleep being good sleep, 8 hours of sleep, and so on, being an important factor for healthy aging, right? And somehow I always, throughout my life, had problems with sleep because of stress, because, as a scientist, every step of your career, from the university where you have to study really a lot, with like real books, not like now that are so big, not like now and everything is in the computer and so on. Like sleep is lacking because you have to somehow achieve so many things, do experiments, study, learn, so other things that you kind of say, okay, I maybe compromise there on sleep, right? And of course, this has a very, very big impact on health. Anyone who didn't sleep for a couple of nights already feels pretty shit, right? And so how can we, and of course, the easiest solution is to sleep. But what if we can't? Because we travel, because we work night shifts, and so on and so forth. So can we have a drug that replicates the benefits of sleep without sleeping? And this is another basically line of research that we are doing here in Jena. And we have already some candidate compounds to develop in this direction.
Really?
And if I can do that, I think that's going to be cool as well.
Yeah. Also, like the whole research, every topic we talked about today sounds really, really cool. And for me, like I said, I'm not a scientist. I'm just interested. And now I'm even more interested, because everything sounds so interesting. And sometimes I find it hard that everybody just has 24 hours a day, and just you need to select what you are working on, because you can dance on every party there. What do you think about when you say you have a candidate? Also, some topic that we talked about in the podcast so far, not in this, but in different ones, is this peptide thing, because...
Well, this had to come up, huh? Because this is peptides.
But, because I read that actually, and everybody knows, in the last podcast we talked about Ozempic and GLP-1 and all this kind of stuff, but what do you think about this topic in general when it comes to, I read that it's possible in the future that you just inject the peptide into your body that will mimic sports, and that it's not, that don't need to work out anymore. So what you just described also with the sleep, you think it's possible someday that you just mimic the effects of sleep and then you don't need to sleep anymore?
No, that's not the idea. I think sleep still is required, because so essentially sleep is highly complex and it does many things in the body. And it's impossible to replicate what it does with one drug ever. Now, where we focused on is a specific function of sleep, which is repair of damage that accumulated during the day to different molecular structures in the cell in the whole body. So basically, it's not even so much the cognitive outcomes or something. It's the damage that accumulates in the whole body when we don't sleep, right? Because sleep is this reset when toxins are coming out and so on and so forth. And I think that we can do. We can effectively, to a large extent, replicate this function of sleep with drugs that we're currently developing. Now there is the whole rest of it that remains that we were not even, looking at, because like I said, it's such a complex process that one can only to tackle different parts of it. One has to split it into different functions and to go after each of them separately. So so please sleep.
Yeah.
But if you can't, we have something that helps you feel better. That's the idea. And actually, it's maybe sounded now a little bit funny, but there are whole groups of people that are sleep deprived, or their quality of sleep is continuously bad because of, let's say, shift work. So people who work in night shifts, they never sleep well. Because the circadian regulation in the brain becomes completely messed up. They work during the night, they come during the day home, and they try to sleep, doesn't work. They take sleep medications. It's well known that sleep medications cannot trigger the same repair process like normal sleep. So these are the people we would like to help, basically. Maybe, Elon Musk can benefit, who doesn't like to sleep as well, but there is this kind of idea to help maybe, mothers of young children also, and this type of categories of people.
When you find this kind of stuff out, I would really, really like to invite you again here to talk about this topic, because it's also cool to have these crazy topics all at once, because everything is just needs to be investigated so much, and you orchestrate, as we learned, so much stuff about this, which is actually, for me, it's so interesting to get this kind of life.
But you asked a specific question, right? We kind of went into the whole sleep direction.
Yeah.
If you can mimic the effect of exercise with a peptide, that was your question. I don't know now which peptide you are talking about, but I think some effects of exercise can be mimicked by drugs. We are also working on something like that. Honestly, if I had to summarize, because we talked about gut integrity, we also, research mimetics of diet. Essentially, the overarching topic of the lab is to deliver the effects of healthy lifestyle to people that are not able to have healthy lifestyle.
Yeah.
That cannot be on diet, that cannot exercise, that cannot sleep. And this is why we are kind of talking around these things today and generally, yeah.
Okay. Is there anything as being too healthy? Can you be too healthy that it's probably not beneficial for you?
No. Too healthy one cannot be. What maybe you mean, I don't know, I'm just trying to figure this out. If, let's say, activity of a specific process is good for health, can you push it too far?
Yeah.
Yes, of course. We had a paper that we published now. Don't hope I say the right number. I think 2024. Mm-hmm. So there we investigated a process that defines, among other things, how quickly one builds muscle. It's like when people go to the gym and they want to build muscle quickly, they take a lot of protein to activate this process, okay? And what we found out is that in C. elegans, okay, so I don't want to oversell what we found, is that it works in the short term, right? So having this pathway highly active is good in the short term. You become strong, you have a lot of muscle, you're faster and fitter than your peers that don't have this. But then, in the long run, this accelerates metabolic aging. Because having this activity too much demands too much energy to be produced by mitochondria that we talked about before. So these powerhouses of the cell, which pushes them to get damaged faster. And then metabolism collapses at an earlier age. And I guess, so, it's good to be strong, but maybe pushing it too far isn't good anymore. And maybe this is what you meant. I don't know. I'm just trying.
Is 100% what I meant.
Pushing, so for any kind of process, so there is a term in biology which is called homeostasis, which means that every process has a certain best point of activity where it's most optimal for the health. And this is where one has to stay. I mean, pushing things too far or having them too little, either way is not good.
Okay. But this would mean, like, if the conclusion for me would be that a human body has a limited amount of energy, that you can just, like when you said the metabolism is sped up, of course, this energy decreases way faster than it used to be probably when you do it more conservatively. So is it correct? Kind of?
I mean, it's true, but the thing is that, of course, the cells are using more energy, right? And energy gets depleted faster. But cells, they don't agree with this situation. So they remodel themselves to be able to produce more energy. So they have more mitochondria. Mitochondria consume more oxygen. I mean, all of this we can measure, and we could show that this is what happens. And this, as a downside, creates metabolic damage. So like reactive molecules that go around in the cell and start damage everything. So by coping with increased energy demand of elevated, the process called ribosome biogenesis. So these are machines that make protein, and protein is required for building muscle, right? So there's the connection. So by coping with the increased energy demand of ribosome biogenesis, the cell is doing something that will harm it in the long run. And the cell, I mean, it doesn't think about aging. It wants to survive now, right?
Lives the moment.
Yeah, right, yes.
Okay. Right. I learned so much today. And thank you, first of all, for this insight inside your work. It's very, 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 very interesting. So I'm 100% sure that we'll meet again one day here at this table. Is there anything our audience can do to support your work? I don't know, maybe I just figured maybe to run this Valley of Death like a crowdfunding, but probably it's not efficient enough to. But is there any like getting attention or stuff that will help you with your work that our audience can do for you? If they say, wow, this work is so interesting, we need to put it on the map someday. So how can we help?
I mean, you mentioned crowdfunding. I mean, there is one project, and I'm not going to go into detail about it now, that will maybe towards the end of this year reach a stage when we would like to do a human trial to test if basically it's a special kind of light that we can shine on the skin. And it changes mitochondria again. We always come back to mitochondria. Mitochondria in the skin in such a way that the whole body feels like it was fasting, although the food intake is normal. And we have data in human cells, C. elegans mice, to prove that it works this way. And also the light we're using, it's called ultraviolet B, narrowband. So it's a therapeutic kind of ultraviolet light which is already used in humans to treat skin inflammation. And this means that it's a treatment which is already used in humans. It's approved even for home use and so on. So now the plan is to test this intervention in people and check if it really can mimic the benefits of diet in those that are not on diet, right? And there we may need some crowdfunding later on.
Yeah, of course.
Which maybe is an option because this will be, so it's a project that is not funded academically. So we are somehow trying to find money by ourselves to lift it off the ground. Because we talked, also with let's say, longevity clinics, wellness clinics, and they all say, once you can show us that this works in humans with, let's say, blood tests for specific markers and so on, we will be happy to implement the technology, but produce us the data. This is always the thing, right?
Yeah.
And how you produce it and how you pay for it, that's you.
Your thing, yeah.
And this is where crowdfunding maybe is helpful, because to start this, actually, we don't need millions. It would be like in the range of, 20,000 maybe or so.
That's definitely doable. So whatever we can do to help you out with this, please don't hesitate to reach out, because we have a big and very, very active community here. Shout out to you guys. And then we may help you in this topic. At the end of the podcast, because we already talked about for 1.5 hours, and thank you, first of all, for all these insights you gave us today. It was really, really nice. I hope my English didn't lag so bad that it's not hearable. So I'm...
Perfect.
Okay, thank you. And there's one last question, and it's completely off topic, but I'm very excited what you think about it. Imagine that you are the mayor of Jena for one day, and it's up to you to change one thing here. And no matter what, you don't need to discuss it with anybody. You can just set facts.
Now I don't want to say something that will get me to trouble.
You can say whatever you want, but if it's it's probably around the episode 50 kind of ish that we are recording today. So we heard a lot of stuff here on this table. What would it be if you can change one thing here?
I think I'm not very original. The traffic situation, right? When the roads are closed for reasons that sometimes you don't entirely understand, and then because I guess it's also the one reason for that is how Jena is in the valley, right? So there is not a lot of space to build roads and so on. But that I would work on that, I guess, somehow. I don't know how in one day.
So you would just change the city. So this is your problem that you are personally having, and you don't have a solution for this. We heard a lot of stuff like building a big parking lot outside the city and then coming inside for free, like with the tram or with train or with whatever. So we heard a lot of stuff there, and it's really, really funny. This is why I looked at Tristan, because we heard this topic a lot of times here, definitely.
Yeah, I guess Jena doesn't have so many issues, but this is definitely one that everyone talks about.
Yeah. And yesterday, it takes to go to Globus in Isserstedt, it takes like 10 minutes for me because I go Erfurter Landstraße. Yeah, not anymore.
Yeah, the Müllteile, how it's called, is closed. I know.
It's completely closed. And I was standing before because I had a business appointment there, and I was checking out. I was like, fuck, the street is closed. What am I supposed to do? And then I just typed it in my Google Maps, and I was like, nice. So I need to go all around the city through the Autobahn and whatever. And I'll be there in half an hour. Terrible.
Yeah, so, I guess to some extent because of the geography, it's difficult to solve.
Of course.
But that's what came to my mind, and nothing else came to my mind. Yeah.
You're not alone with this, believe me. Thank you so much for being here. It was a pleasure. Thank you so much for sharing all this information with us. Hope to see you again on this table, and I wish you all the best with your research, and also that you make it through the valley of death. As I mentioned, whatever we can do for you, please don't hesitate to reach out. And you can also support us by following the show, by rating the show, by commenting. And also, if you have any questions, just feel free to let us know. We really, really like our active audience. So thank you so much for listening, and I hope you learned something today. Hope we meet again next Tuesday for another episode of the Jena United podcast. Thank you so much for listening. Have a great week. Love, peace and harmony. Ich hoffe, die Folge hat euch Spaß gemacht. Ich möchte euch hier jetzt nochmal einladen, euch unsere Webseite anzugucken, und zwar einmal jenaunited.de. Da habt ihr die Möglichkeit, nicht nur alle unsere Folgen zu sehen, sondern dort findet ihr auch einen Button, wo Werbung schalten draufsteht. Da drückt ihr einfach drauf, erklärt uns ein bisschen was zu eurem Projekt, was ihr gerne promoten wollt, und dann würden wir uns sehr freuen, wenn wir da zusammenkommen. Und vielleicht hören wir uns ja nächstes Mal hier zusammen im Jena United Podcast. Viel Spaß dabei und Dankeschön.